Just got to hold it down and make sure. Good morning. It is 10 a.m. And I will call this meeting to order just as soon as we have a quorum on the dais. Oh, you're welcome to keep chatting. All right, here we go. I am going to call to order this meeting of the Public Safety and Justice Committee at 10:01 on Thursday, August 14th. And I must say, it is just a delight to see all of you on the dais again. It feels like it's been a while. Let's begin with a roll call, Nancy.
Vice Chairperson Lee
Good morning, President.
and Chairperson Allenberg.
I'm here as well.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll go right to public comment. This is the portion of the agenda set aside for members of the public wishing to address this committee on matters not on today's agenda, but within the purview of the Public Safety and Justice Committee. We'll hear first from speakers in chambers and then on Zoom. Who do we have?
We have 2 speakers in chambers and 2 speakers on Zoom.
Okay, I'm going to make a last call for speakers. I will close the queue when the first, before the first person begins. Are we holding it 2 and 2?
You're holding it 2 and 2. Yeah.
Okay. We can do 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
First speaker is Maddie. If you can please approach the podium, followed by Liz Gonzalez.
Ask you to move over to that. The microphone is built into that
Okay.
podium.
I'm going to be reading a letter from community organizations that were signed. Over 40 organizations signed this letter. Stop Santa Clara jails from becoming ice traps. The Santa Clara County Sheriff has confirmed that it has communicated with ICE to give them information regarding the release time of individuals in order to make ICE detentions as easy and efficient as possible. In the course of 3 weeks, they have facilitated 4 people being detained by ICE at the Elmwood jail facility. The Sheriff's Office states that ICE is getting release dates from publicly accessed websites. ICE agents then call or go to the jail facilities on release date and ask what time that person is being released. The sheriff staff then gives ICE the exact time of release. Whenever the sheriff staff is giving ICE information to identify the targeted person is unclear. After being given the precise time of people's release by the sheriff, ICE agents then know when to be there to initiate the detention and take the person immediately from their release from jail. The Santa Clara County ICE detainer policy states that the county is prohibited from expending county time and resources responding to ICE inquiries or communicating with ICE regarding individuals' incarceration status or release dates. We believe that the sheriff's communication with ICE is a violation of the county ICE detainer policy.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning. I'm just going to pick up where she left off. At a time of unprecedented increased ICE aggression, regardless of whether the sheriff's actions were in violation of existing policy or not, Santa Clara County must act to protect community members from ICE attacks. If the county acquiesces to ICE enforcement at the jail and willingly gives information to ICE to make a detention frictionless, they are making any incarceration for our immigrant community members a potential precursor to ICE detention. With the current actions by the sheriff, the jails are now ICE traps. We call on the county to stop this process of making ICE enforcement as easy as possible at the county jails. Protecting our immigrant communities from ICE detention and deportation is also a proudly held charge from our county leadership, and that moral and urgent mandate must also apply to those who have been incarcerated. Since we sent this letter to the full board, there have been more community members picked up at our jails by ICE. As of July 30th, 9 people have been confirmed to have been picked up, and we ask that you ask the sheriff to be transparent and let the public know what is the updated number. Thank you.
We received a third card before the queue was closed. Mateo Anaya, if you can please approach the podium.
Good morning. I join you guys today. My name is Mateo Naya. Joining you guys as an intern under Opportunities for Change. I'm happy to be here. It is my first board meeting. I just want to say I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn, and thank you guys for your time.
Welcome.
Okay, and now for our speakers on Zoom. Our first speaker is Parent. Please accept the unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, hello, good morning. I don't know if you guys heard a recent news article, but a San Jose police officer named Saul Duran was arrested for sexually abusing some minor children. And there was a news report that Jeff Rosen knew about inappropriate behavior as far back as 2017. And he never reported this to CPS. And this failure to report, it allowed this abuser, this predator, to continue serving as a police officer. It allowed him to continue to be a foster parent. It allowed him to continue being a predator. I mean, my own kids, I told Jeff Rosen in December of 2017, I told him that my kids were being molested, and I gave him all the details. And because some well-connected attorney that he knows and a retired judge that he's friends with, because they're involved, he refuses to do anything about it. Not only that, but he filed charges against me when no crime was being committed in order to cover up this crime. And during these proceedings, he's allowing this attorney to physically assault me and create great bodily harm to me that I'll likely die from at some point. I mean, we need to remove this guy. He's acting like the DA's office is a private law firm. He's not acting like the DA's office is a public agency meant to protect the public. He just does whatever he wants. And the only person who was willing to protect me and my kids was Daniel Chung, and he got fired a couple weeks later after he indicated that he would help. And now he's suing the county, and we've paid him over $800,000 to sit at home, and who knows how much more for that private attorney, Jonathan Holtzman, and for county council to be fighting this lawsuit. I mean, it's got to be at least $1 million. He's just burned. He's just thrown in the garbage during this deficit. We need to remove him. There's no other way around it. Please Google DA Jeff Rosen petition. And within the top 5 results, you'll see something about sex trafficking. Thank you for your time.
I'm going to ask you to pause, Nancy, before the next speaker continues. Supervisor Lee is going to read a statement.
Yeah, just to make it clear, California law does prohibit the disclosure of information related to any investigation of suspected child abuse and neglect. As a result, we are not authorized by law to speak to specifics on any particular case or results of investigation. California law also requires Child Welfare Department immediately cross-report physical and sexual abuse of children to law enforcement and district attorneys so that swift action can be taken when needed. The public can be assured that our county takes all allegations of child abuse and neglect seriously and takes appropriate action. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's continue with our public speakers.
Final speaker is Wesley Mukayama. Wesley, I'm going to unmute your mic. Please accept the unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Is there an issue with Mr. Fukuyama's microphone?
Yes, he does not seem to be unmuting his mic. Oh, there he is. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Wes Mukuyama, and I'm a chaplain in the jail, and also a member of the San Jose Nikkei Resistors, to the Coalition of Neighbors Not Enemies coalition. I fail to understand why the Sheriff's Department, as articulated by our two early speakers, are making it easy for so-called undocumented. I'm worried about the fact that this is a sanctuary county, and I wonder if the sheriff is illegally letting ICE come into the jail and extricate who they think should be brought out. I remember the 1798 alien law, which was never removed, but 100,000 Japanese Americans in World War II were incarcerated. My wife was born in a camp, and this is what hits home for me. I can't understand how the sheriff can allow easy access for ICE. Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you very much. Excuse me for just 1 minute. I'm looking at a note. I'm going to move to, this is an additional, pardon me. We're going to move to the consent calendar, and I have no changes to the consent calendar.
Me neither, and I would like to move to approve the consent calendar.
Do we have any public I'll second that. And do we have any public speakers on the consent calendar?
There are no public speakers for this item.
Okay, that takes us to item 4 on our
Take a
regular.
vote.
Good idea. Let's vote.
Vice Chairperson Lee
Aye.
and Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Now let's move to item 4, which is to receive a report from the Office of the County Executive relating to the uses of Public Safety Realignment Act, referred to as AB 109 funds.
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg, and I will just kick off this presentation before turning it over to the folks who are down at staff table who will be providing the substance of the presentation to just give a little context on this item and a handful of other items that will be coming to board committees. This item is one that flows from discussion during the budget process for the current fiscal year that we concluded before the summer recess, where the Board of Supervisors asked for the opportunity in the context of dealing with some challenging reductions in AB 109 funded services, but also some challenging reductions that were brought forward by departments in other funding for largely CBO contracted services, for a little bit more context and discussion to occur this fall on how are we expending certain categories of resources that we have, what priorities are we utilizing as we stare down what will be an extraordinarily challenging upcoming budget process, and to make sure that the Board of Supervisors and the community members and other folks who participate in these committee meetings have an opportunity to provide feedback, have questions answered about the status quo in terms of how we're utilizing some of these funds, and a little bit more of the challenges that we see on the horizon, so that both the committees and the community have both more insight into those challenges, and we can get some guidance as we proceed to give budget instructions to departments for the upcoming fiscal year about what will be really undoubtedly pretty devastating reductions that we have to make in all manner of services, with the benefit of really hearing about what are our shared priorities on what to prioritize for preservation in that really challenging context. So this will be the first of a series of board committee discussions. This one specifically focused on the utilization of AB 109 funds for CBO contracts. The other upcoming conversations will focus on gender-based violence services and how those are funded, prevention-oriented services funded by the child welfare system, also our funding for immigration-oriented legal services and related services. So look forward to those conversations with the board and with the broader community. I'll just say one other thing before I turn it over to the panel. As the committee is aware, AB 109 is just one example of a significant realignment process that occurred, and I had a thoughtful suggestion to just say a little bit briefly for folks who are not familiar with what realignment is, knowing this is just one subset of really significant realignment we've seen over the last few decades. Realignment is the shifting of responsibilities between the state and counties. And generally, and this is a very reflective example of that, where due to really significant challenges in the state being able to manage the prison population and other related challenges they faced, they pushed down to counties major responsibilities in the criminal justice context, as well as funding designed to support counties grappling with their new responsibilities. And we've seen very major realignments occur, and you'll hear that referenced in our budget process. 2011 realignment, AB 109, other realignment processes, but did just want to say a few words about what realignment is more generically before we dive into this specific discussion. And with that, I'll turn it over to Key.
Thank you, Greta, for the introduction and comments. Good morning, everyone. Key Lee, Deputy County Executive. I'm here with Chad Martins, Deputy Director for Office Diversion Reentry Services, Tony Felice and Mercedes Garcia from Office of Budget and Analysis. Today, we hope to provide a very thorough and comprehensive report on the county's use of AB 109 funds, the processes we use to allocate those funds. Invariably, some clarification or miscommunication was created through all of this, so I invite and welcome and ask for the participation and clarifications of my colleagues on the dais. As Ms. Hansen noted, AB 109 is one of those realignments, and it was a significant shift in how individuals who are participating in the justice system interacted with that. As a result of AB 109, certain individuals with non-violent, non-serious offenses serve their sentences and then subsequently their probation in the local community. And the state, of course, then shifted some funding to counties. In addition to the funding that we call AB 109, the state outlined several governance requirements, the principal of which is the Community Corrections Partnership. In each county, a CCP is created. That CCP is chaired by the Chief of Probation. And the CCP's role, of course, is to review and recommend a AB 109 expenditure plan for the Board of Supervisors' consideration. Invariably, with 58 different counties and different agencies, different boards, we have 58 different CCP plans. And as you'll note in our attachment C, when we try to understand and compare the differences between the different communities, it was actually quite challenging. I think in Los Angeles County, they just note that they allocate some funds to community-based organizations, and that's simply what they put in their plan. In Santa Clara County, we've always taken a very holistic and system-wide approach. In addition to ensuring that we're providing services for the AB 109 population, the individuals who would have served their sentences in state prison, but now locally, we try to use those funds to support a more progressive and effective reentry system to allow for individuals to more effectively reintegrate into the community. We also try to ensure that in addition to providing the justice system services, that we provide the reentry services. And perhaps and we also try to take a very collaborative approach, a multi-departmental approach, engagement with stakeholders, and perhaps the embodiment of that, or one example of that, is of course the Reentry Resource Center in San Jose. Their services are provided by a wide variety of departments and community-based organizations. The sort of policy embodiment of that philosophy or that approach is what we call the Adult Reentry Strategic Plan, which is a more comprehensive planning document, and one that incorporates the CCP required document, but is a little broader. I remember in the early days meeting at the old Resource Reentry Center and thinking about how we're going to use all these funds. Those times, of course, have changed, and we're in a different place. In addition to a softening economy, property tax, sales tax, we are facing a structural deficit in AB 109, in other funding sources. We have constraints associated with the consent decree, and all of that. If all of that isn't enough, we are facing serious financial difficulties through HR 1. And the primary purpose of today, I think, is to receive the board's, the committee's direction and guidance so that we can have a thoughtful process for the budget for fiscal 27. Just a little information about the AB 109 revenue funding source, roughly $75 million as a base, and a little bit added each year depending on growth and or fund balance. When we think about AB 109, it is just one funding source for our public safety and justice departments. This table and some of this information is pulled from the recommended budget. Just note one thing, which is AB 109 really represents only about less than 6% of our total funding for our public safety and justice departments. We use AB 109 funds for our public safety justice departments, but of course we allocate it to other departments like behavioral health. For the fiscal year 25-26, we have an AB 109 expense allocation of about $84 million. And as you can see, we use it for both personnel in various departments and contracted services. I'll just note that many of the positions in these departments are also providing direct services. For example, in the Office of Supportive Housing, there are personnel outstationed at the reentry centers providing housing and other services. Under SVMC, that's about 15 or 20 positions associated with the Valley Homeless Healthcare Program, so providing medical and integrated behavioral health services at the reentry centers. This table, and in your report, we show that there's about $17.2 million that we contracted services, and the categories of services and their amounts in descending order. And the next few slides give a little more color to each of the service categories, which we try to add to summarize what is in the comprehensive attachment B. And I'll just skip through these slides. And then really today and for the discussion is among these 15 categories of services, what are the priorities, goals of the committee, and how do we incorporate them into the budget planning process for fiscal 27, which is outlined on the next slide. With that, I'll pause for questions, clarifications. Thank you.
And Key, if you could just go back to slide 15. And if I could just add one more thing before we turn it over to the committee. As Key mentioned, and Key, correct me if I'm wrong, but the organization of the categories of expenditures of contracted services under AB 109, as Key mentioned, are listed here. There are 15 broad categories. We can go back through if the committee or others have questions on what is included in some of those subcategories on the prior slides. But they're here listed 1 through 15 in descending order of magnitude of investment. So I did just want to flag that again, that the employment category is the highest funded of these 15 categories today, with education as the least funded. Obviously, there's other sources of access to educational resources. But did want to flag that. Happy to have conversations about, again, what's included under each of these categories. But our hope is that we can either get feedback from the committee that the prioritization reflected here is on the right track in terms of what the committee is hoping to see, or any other feedback as we really stare down, unfortunately, and you know, feel like so many of us feel like major Debbie Downers in many of these conversations, but just really wanting to convey the magnitude of the extraordinary challenge that we're facing with the structural deficit in AB 109, a major structural deficit in the general fund, and then devastating additional, really catastrophic cuts that we're facing to Health and Human Services through the passage of HR 1 at the federal level.
Thank you. I'm going to look first to the public for comment and then come back to the committee.
We have 2 requests to speak in chambers and 0 on Zoom.
Okay, let me just hold that for a second or two in case anyone else wants to join. Seeing no movement here, are we holding it to?
We are holding it 2, yes.
All right, then 2 minutes, please.
Okay, when I call your name, you can please approach the podium. Yesenia Velasquez and David Estrada.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Yesenia Velasquez, and I am here as a member of the Reentry and Justice Impacted Community to speak about AB 109 funding and its direct impact on the people it's meant to serve across Santa Clara County. While AB 109 provides vital resources to reduce recidivism and support successful reentry, there is still a lack of transparency on how these funds are allocated and whether they are meeting the needs of our community. I respectfully request that the county provide a public report detailing position funded, geographical allocation, service reach, performance feedback, lived experience input, to what extent people with lived experience have been involved in shaping these funding decisions. AB 109 was intended to address the root cause of recidivism and help people successfully reintegrate. Without transparent data, measurable outcomes, and genuine community input, we cannot be certain these resources are being used to their fullest potential. I urge this board to ensure that the lived experience voices are centered in funding decisions and that clear public accountability measures are in place so our community can see the real impact of these investments. Thank you.
Next speaker, come on down, please.
Hello, how are we doing? My name is David Estrada. I second everything Yesenia just said. First off, I'll give you a little bit of background. Let's see, I began my justice system as far as being incarcerated or going to jails in county in 2024. They didn't have any AB 109 when I first began that path of my interaction with the criminal justice system. However, I did do a life sentence, and I've been out since June 30th of 2022. Right now, I currently work for a GEO reentry center for the DARC. I am also a CAB member for Santa Clara County reentry, and also I'm in my first year of social work, Master's of Social Work program at San Jose State. Today, I start my very first internship. And I think of the idea of it being a holistic approach as far as Santa Clara County goes, and I don't know how reduction in funding assists this idea of a holistic approach, especially when it comes to the public safety. And having so many perspectives and different views because of my role as an individual that works with individuals that are on parole, parole agents, working for a private corporation. We utilize the reentry center. We utilize AB 109. Parole agents ask us for resources. So CDCR has their funding, but at the end of the day, it comes down to Santa Clara County, right? So the importance of AB 109 and the fundings is how they get allocated, right, those resources. And the idea of connection to the community, that community had faith-based programs, whatever it might be. I look around this room and I see many individuals that are part of our program, right? However, we go to the reentry center. We utilize AB 109 funding because the state does not give enough funding for that. End of the day, the retention of employees and burnout.
Thank you very much.
I just want to make one comment. Any of the comments you have made, if you cannot finish it, please, you could turn in the paperwork to our clerk. Will be included in the record for completeness. Thank you.
That was our final speaker.
I thought we had one on Zoom. My
We had
apologies.
2 in chambers. They both spoke, and we had 0 on Zoom.
Got it. Thank you so much. I'm going to begin first with much appreciation to Key and Greta and to the teams that I know worked with you in putting together this report. It really, it's very well done. To me, it is a template for us to use going forward as you work to fulfill the board's direction for greater transparency, for really understanding the impact of the contracts that you all enter into with AB 109 and as we'll see soon with other contract sets in the county. I certainly would acknowledge again, because we can't emphasize enough, the forces that we are working against right now that include our own base structural budget, the AB 109 structural deficit, the AB 109 structural deficit, and HR 1. These are really, really harsh realities. The departments in this that sit under this committee do some of the work that is of highest priority, certainly to me, and given board action and funding direction, I would say by the board as a whole. It is not my interest to be talking about reducing any of this. A lot of these areas need additional funding. Knowing that despite the prioritization and commitment that this board is going to have to make really challenging decisions over the year. I want us to do that extremely thoughtfully and with an emphasis on both impact and data. The adult reentry strategic implementation plan, the reentry strategic plan, says as its mission statement to reduce recidivism by using evidence-based practices in implementing a seamless system of services, supports, and supervision. So we have the overarching goal here is to reduce recidivism, to help people re-enter our communities safely, securely, and for the long term. Everything we are doing with these funds should be in pursuit of those impacts. We do have a lot of data on utilization. I'm a little bit less interested in that than I am in impact. I want to be clear, and I want us to have clear metrics for whoever our contracted partners are that measure how they are getting us closer to achieving that mission and that vision of, there's a vision statement as well, where we have built a safer community and strengthened families through successful reintegration and reentry of formerly incarcerated individuals back into Santa Clara County. That's what we want to do. And we have to be able to define what impact looks like in order to assess the effectiveness of any program. I want to look at the categories that you gave us. I'm in no way ready today to say these are my top 5 because I don't have that information around who's working toward our impact, what are our priorities, and the list of 15 really combines substantive policy areas with administrative tasks and navigation, which are necessary too, but I'm certainly not going to choose between service navigation and mental health. I can pull out of this list 5 substantive areas that I see all move us closer toward reducing recidivism: employment, mental health treatment services, substance use treatment services, housing, life skills, education. Those are the substantive ones. The other programs in here are probably essential components to be able to implement those programs, but as a policymaker, I'm not going to weigh in on how you implement, how you operationalize, and for that matter, with whom you contract. I want to know that the contracts we are entering into have impact goals, have agreed on ways to measure them. We have to be asking for things that are realistic, so certainly working in partnership, not only with the community of lived experience, but with the contracting partners so that we are all moving in the same direction. I would certainly want to know that there is no redundancy, and similarly, that there are no gaps. Knowing all of that is going to help us, I think, make decisions that no one will be delighted with, because there inevitably will be gaps. But let's know what they are, and let's be intentional about that. So I would look to, and the last point I'll make before I get to a question is, I want to know that things that we are funding with AB 109, or I want to know whether there are other alternative funding sources. For example, gender-based violence prevention shows up in some of the AB 109 pieces here. I know that we're anticipating a full contract review around all of those services too, and it would be handy. I don't know practical, but hopefully so, to look at the gender-based violence prevention work all together rather than some with AB 109 and some somewhere else. Do any of these other programs have other funding sources? So to finally get to a question to Key or Greta, what would it look like in terms of resources, time, engagement to conduct an analysis of all of the AB 109 funded contracts and FTEs to prepare for us a more comprehensive chart that shows not just amounts spent, but which ones are helping us in more impactful ways than other reach that goal of reducing recidivism and successful reentry. And if you're going to say all of them equally do that, then I would say we are in a position of then talking about if we have to make cuts across the board evenly, but I don't think that's ever true. I think we always have to prioritize based on board priorities, which I would argue are already include homelessness ending and prevention, mental health treatment and substance use treatment, the work that you're doing. So I will
Yeah.
pause. I know that's a lot of words, but I want us to get to a really thoughtful, measurable place.
Yeah, let me just make a few general comments in response to your question, and then I think Key and others on the dais and at staff table can probably weigh in with some additional thoughts. First, I think the good news is a lot of what you just articulated as the desired approach to how departments think about what to propose in terms of contract augmentation, or unfortunately in the environment we're in, reduction, really tracks with what you're saying from the standpoint of looking at what are the evidence-based practices in this area that we know from external, especially much more large population-based research, actually yield some of these outcomes that are our shared goals as a system. How do we then contract for those types of services? How do we deliver that type of infrastructure? It is, in many instances, pretty challenging to measure whether we're yielding those specific effects, given the number of people we serve in some of these contracts, the complexity of measuring that impact, and the fact that we're often giving folks, based on the really wonderful holistic approach, many interventions at the same time. So if someone comes to the reentry center and they have the fantastic outcome that one of our speakers described has been his wonderful trajectory, what was the secret sauce that yielded that benefit? Because we're often offering people health services, mental health services, employment benefits, access to housing, and then a question is also, what's the efficient way to deliver the service? So some of the challenging choices we made last time, we do continue to offer access to employment services. There was a determination made by our staff that the way we were doing that probably wasn't the most efficient way to do it. So in taking a reduction, we shifted from one way of delivering some of those education services to another that we were able to offer to the same number of people, but at a lower cost. So I use those as a couple of examples of the complexity of doing exactly what you just named, and why if, for example, we are delivering a very strongly evidence-based intervention that has been the subject of a lot of research in other communities or communities writ large, but we're only delivering that service to, say, 50 to 100 people a year, and they're also getting many other interventions, it's sometimes difficult to know whether that specific service is achieving whatever outcome it is or isn't. That said, we do look absolutely to other measures of are the contractors meeting all the expectations that we've set forth in the contract, whether it's delivery of service quantity or service quality, if there are appropriate benchmarks in that space. Whatever are those outcome-oriented metrics that are most appropriate and realistic to actually collect, we do so. And so I say that only to say there are some truly fantastic services that we deliver as a county in this area and others that are organized around real fidelity to evidence-based practice, where there is a huge evidence base developed over years, but very difficult to track, what are the outcomes that we're seeing for that specific service for these specific individuals, just given the number of folks that we serve, and also, frankly, the cost of that sort of nuanced evaluation.
And I'm certain that what is the secret sauce for one person isn't necessarily the same combination, which
Yes.
then brings us back to where we started, which is how we make, presuming we will have to make challenging reduction decisions, how do we then minimize or mitigate the negative impact of our top goal, which is reduction in recidivism? And certainly one way to do it is by experiment, which is a scary one. If we make X number of cuts and over the next 2 or 3 years, recidivism rates are rising, is that because of our cuts? Is it because everything in our whole broad economy has gotten much tougher over the next couple of years, connected more to HR1? I'm really looking for a defensible path and transparent path to be able to make the decisions beyond the broad priorities of the board and this committee.
Yeah, I'll just say one other thing. You know, I do think that we are fortunate to have some really wonderful, thoughtful leaders who care deeply about that stuff, bring a lot of deep expertise in their specific arena of public safety and justice work to bear on judgments about what they include in their proposed reductions during these really challenging times. I think we will aspire, as we do every year, to get better at making sure the materials that we bring forward to the board really effectively articulate those without being so voluminous as we face, unfortunately, a volume of reductions that's going to be very significant in the coming year, that it's not so much information that it becomes unprocessable. But I do think there's some really important considerations here. And maybe one other thing that I would name as other lens of expertise. One of the speakers mentioned the importance, and I think that is very much something we agree with, of incorporating the voices and experience and expertise of individuals with lived experience. So I did also just want to take the
No one can
opportunity, if I
better tell
could,
us.
to invite Javier or others to just speak to how that perspective is also incorporated into some of the challenging choices that are ahead.
Thank you. Javier, if you want to add, that would be great. I would say that an advantage really here is that we do have a strategic plan. We are still lacking that as a county entity overall. The previous iteration of the board created 6 alleged priorities, but truly we can fit anything into, just about anything into those 6 priorities. So I think we, as a county, still need some consensus around where we want essentially the county executive to prioritize efforts, funding, direction, and then therefore to all of you. Having said that, I realize that going into these next few years, it may not make sense even to, well, I would actually argue that both ways. It's even more important to be strategic because our funds will be much more limited, and we really need to focus and don't have the luxury of saying, well, anything can fit into these priorities. But it also means that we may be just scraping by at a more existential level without the luxury of saying these are the things that we want to prioritize.
I think that's right, and and just to add one additional complexity here, of course, in the public safety and justice arena, we also have a lot of mandated functions that we have no choice but to perform.
Right.
And so, of course, just by virtue of the fact that these are mandated services, we can't not fund those. And so, as you had asked another question that I just wanted to quickly answer about. Are we looking at other sources of funding, whether it's in the gender-based violence context or more broadly, to backfill some of these really wonderful AB 109 funded services as we face that structural deficit? The answer is absolutely yes, although often a lot of those funding sources are drying up. So I think the board will recall some of the challenges, for example, in the victim services arena that the district attorney's office and others performing those services are facing as we see drying up of federal grants in those areas or untenable conditions imposed on receipt of those grant funds. We're absolutely kind of hunting down all of those other opportunities, but unfortunately for us, the primary backup to AB 109 is the general fund. A lot of the services that we fund through AB 109 could be funded through the general fund or vice versa in the public safety and justice context. So in many ways, AB 109 funds and general funds, when used for public safety and justice purposes, can be thought of as relatively fungible.
Which brings us to the biggest challenge in front of us, which is that the significant reduction in Medicaid reimbursement is inevitably going to mean that services that aren't mandated or that are filled by general funds may be the first to be curtailed. I'd love to bring Supervisor Lee into this conversation. I've been talking a lot.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I just want to first thank staff for bringing forward this report after my request a couple months ago to have this discussion here at PSJC regarding the AB 109 funds. My goal at the time, and certainly still now, is to hope to get a clearer and more complete picture so that there's better understanding and transparency of how these funds were spent and how we should move forward in terms of coming together of determining what's the area to put these funds, especially in light of the shortage of resources we're going to be facing. And I really appreciate this initiative to discuss how we prioritize these funds and making sure we will be able to have the data we need. But more importantly, too, is to include everyone in this conversation. It's not supposed to be something just being made by the county staff. And I have a whole bunch of questions. So first question regarding this process inclusion, key is you mentioned there's this CPP body that has been done for every county as designed by the state's legislation. So how has this oversight body been included in these discussions, and what type of additional outreach has been done to see if these feedback could be incorporated? If you could share.
Thank you, Supervisor. Maybe I'll start, and then Greta or the Chief of Probation can join in if they would like. So first, to the broader question of to what extent have the county, the staff engaged with community members, people with lived experience, and the planning process and the implementation of AB 109, I would say quite extensively. Even today, we have a lived experience advisory board. The very beginning of the AB 109 implementation, we worked through an adult reentry network at the time, a sort of informal body. And those engagements, those touch points have continued to this day. The CCP meets quarterly where there is there's discussion with them. And that's mainly a staff departmental body, but there is sort of that initial planning process with them, and then sort of more broadly the community through Office of Reentry Services or other departments.
Yeah, and I would maybe invite Chief Burchard to speak a little bit more about the CCP. It is a Brown Act body that meets, I believe, here in this chamber. And where do you meet?
We meet at the probation
Oh,
department.
at the probation department.
It's a big question. I think there's at least two of us who've been in the room since the inception of AB 109, Javier and myself, when we helped create the Reentry Resource Center back when this bill passed. The CCP is how the county receives the funds, through the CCP, which is chaired by the chief probation officer and scripted members that are by statute need to attend. The community is there to victim, voice, public defender, district attorney, the sheriffs, the district, and a few others. That's where the thoughts and ideas come to place, as how we would like to see the direction headed. And then from that, it comes to the board for approval, which then goes to the BSCC for their approval on our plan.
And I don't know if, Key, you also wanted to speak a little bit to it's referenced in the materials before the committee, but a bit of a reboot of the planning process that we're trying to, it's when you have something that sort of flowed in a certain track for many, many years, it's important periodically to sort of do a little bit of a reset to make sure that we are really earnestly gathering feedback from everyone, as opposed to, largely moving forward in the way that we have. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Greta. Maybe I'll just make 2 points about the reentry strategic plan, which we've extended for about a year or so. And the purpose of that extension is really twofold. One, administration, I felt that we were not doing a sufficient and adequate job of describing the full portfolio of justice system improvement initiatives that the county has embarked upon these many years, from the bail and release work group to the jail reforms to the adult reentry strategic plan. So the intent is to, of course, incorporate and make more transparent the whole portfolio of interventions or initiatives. And the second point, though, is we put a sort of temporary pause in bringing back the reentry strategic plan because we felt that we need to engage the board more fully in the next reentry strategic plan. And Greta said something earlier that we have, fortunately, many of the practices, programs, contracts that we have come from community need, come from the community voices, do have evidence behind them. And I would say that if you were to ask me 3 months ago, we would have come back with a report that would have been, I don't know, 20 pages of all these different programs and all this data, but not perhaps organized in a way that can help the board make the decisions it might want to make in order to address the budget changes. So what we're trying to do is use the input that we're receiving today and then to come back with a version of the adult reentry strategic plan that incorporates some of the information and the guidance that we received today.
Yeah, thank you, Key, and thank you so much for Chief Burchard. I do get the history of the body and how that came about, I'm I guess more interested is having all these meetings, having these recommendations from our lived experience groups. How are those being incorporated or not incorporated, and has this differences of discussion? Let's say, hey, they suggested something that we really didn't want to do. Is there anything that you could highlight so we could at least understand the flavor of what are the issues that are the most pressing that we could decide which are the ones that maybe the board should learn more about?
I think through the CCP, all of the conversations are around exactly what you're talking about. And so as folks are identifying what the needs are of the clients, and we can't forget that when this started in realignment in 2011, it was because folks were coming out of prison that we were now going to be supervising locally here in counties, and it's the probation department who now supervises those clients. And so as that initial wave of folks were coming through and being released from prisons, the Reentry Resource Center came on board as far as how are we going to serve that clientele. And then from there, it's expanded into, how are we serving then keeping folks from entering into the system and re-entering into the system. And so those are where the ideas are coming at, or should be coming from the public who is there, because it is a Brown Act committee, about how do we want to address the needs of these individuals that, A, that we supervise, and B, that are coming out of jail so that they don't get deeper into the system. All of the things that you see in the report are critical to recidivism. There are some that are more critical than others. And then what are the number of folks that we're actually serving in those programs? Are we serving 100 opposed to 300 or 400? As we start looking financially at where we're going to cut back, who are we serving and where are we getting the most bang for our buck? This funding stream that comes from the state is going to get less, not more, based upon how the formula is set up. And we are at the cap of that funding stream right now. So there are going to have to be reductions, as everybody here knows. Where those reductions come from is for us to figure out, as well as what's the most important programs and services to make an impact in keeping people out of the system.
Yeah, see. Oh, Greta and Javier, yeah, through chair.
Javier, why don't you go ahead and jump in? I'll go after you.
Sure. Thank you, Supervisor, for the questions, and thank you, Chairperson Allenberg, for setting the foundation about the mission and the objectives of the reentry network and the reentry plan, because the goal was to target gaps of our system, and then how do we establish warm handoffs. And reiterating Chief Burchard's point about the inception of that plan was the creation of the Reentry Resource Center, and how do we help probation officers, folks that were supervising the folks in the community to engage those services. And in attachment D, we have the outcome measures for a lot of the services that are provided by county staff at the Reentry Resource Center. Like the medical mobile unit is heavily used. It's probably the highest clinic for the Valley Homeless Healthcare Program in the system, seeing hundreds a week, both here in San Jose and in Gilroy. One of the early initiatives that was created from the CCP was a faith-based collaborative, and it's one of our strongest service navigation that continues to work, making sure that probation officers had someone, an entity to hand off individuals. I think you mentioned about the question about the community engagement. So not only do we have a strong community advisory board that, as a matter of fact, we meet tonight, we meet once a month, and then there's also a community advisory board for South County that also meets once a month. And we pause the engagement of the reentry strategic plan until we have this framework. That strategic plan came to end June 30th of this year, so we're in the midst of trying to get this going because the strategic plan is the CCP plan that has to be submitted to the state by November, December of every calendar year. So as Deputy County Executive Key Lee has mentioned that we're working on that, and we'll be engaging the Community Advisory Board. We've done some surveys with not only our folks that come to the Reentry Resource Center, but also all of our partners. And then I think we also keep in mind that we engage lived experience folks in the workforce. So we're very proud that all of our contractors, the ones that we oversee, we identify who of their staff have lived experience, and about 40% of the staff through AB 109 funding are with lived experience. And then a lot of our staff at the Reentry Resource Center have lived experience, both at behavioral health, DRS, and the medical mobile unit. So we're very proud of making sure that we have that voice as they work with the clients. And then in terms of best practices, I have a monthly meeting with some of my colleagues from Contra Costa, Alameda, and San Francisco County, kind of understand how they're doing their work. Contra Costa just released an RFP for their almost a similar faith-based collaborative that we are doing because they see the benefits.
Right.
So we're coming back to this committee in November to refresh the data of the outcomes for the staff and the programs that we provide at the Reentry Resource Center, and then also our community-based organization. But so I think attachment D kind of lays out some of that data information in terms of the numbers of folks being engaged. And 55% of the folks that come to the Reentry Resource Center are unemployed. Mm-hmm. So we now have a employment career center, both here in San Jose and in Gilroy, that is staffed by Goodwill Industries and Center for Employment Opportunities, two of our employment providers. So we're always looking at best practices, kind of looking at what other counties are doing to do the work.
No, thank you. And I just want to say thanks so much for providing the bigger picture. For example, comparing to different counties, that was truly enlightening to show that, like, say, Ventura turns out to have a very, very low percentage, like 5%. And then you've got Alameda, who's close to 48%, which is also anomaly in terms of how high it is in terms of allocation CBOs. And on that note, when recording the allocation fund CBO, looking at the funding that we've been getting, the AB 109 allocation recently actually has gone up, right? So the number has been trending good for the last few years. But based on that, the amount that has been allocated to CBOs remained fairly constant, around 19 to 21 million. So it really hasn't gone up to CBOs either. So maybe, Greta, you could explain the thinking behind that.
Yeah, maybe I'll just, I'll zoom back a little bit and then I'll answer your question specifically. This is a challenge, I think, as we share with the community the problem we're struggling with. We are seeing modest growth in some of our revenue streams, this one included. It's just not keeping up nearly with the increased costs that we're experiencing to deliver the services. That's true on the county staff side, certainly. I'm really attuned to that. I think you would hear the same thing from our CBO providers in terms of their cost increases to deliver the same services. And so we've had challenging choices around how do we best sustain the things that we're doing with AB 109? How do we make sure that we're still providing robust services? I'll just name one related lens that's hard. The budget for the county is so complex and multifaceted. It's hard to pick a defined and appropriate universe to zoom in on. I'll use the example that Javier used of the Valley Homeless Healthcare Program. AB 109 contributes to funding for that program for the services that are delivered at our reentry resource centers. Obviously, we have a lot of other pools of funding that are likewise contributing to coverage of the county portion of costs associated with operation of our VHHP services. That would be true also for some of our CBO-funded services. So there may be areas where we've maintained the kind of same overall service infrastructure provided through a CBO, but reduced the AB 109 contribution, or we've said this AB 109 funded program is going to shrink, but we also have other, to use the gender-based violence example, other programs that are not AB 109 funded where we can refer some of the folks that we would have otherwise referred to this program. So I think it's challenging sometimes to get that holistic picture, just given how nuanced and the wonderful fact that we have many doors through which folks can walk through, funded different ways to receive similar services. And we're really trying, for example, at the Reentry Resource Center, to provide one place-based hub for a lot of services that are designed around the population, the reentry population, making those services accessible, but also, have other ways we're providing those same services to them and others, and other funding streams that are at play.
Yeah, so I completely agree with my colleagues here, and also Chair Allenberg asking questions. What are the categories most effective in reducing recidivism? All of us are trying to find that, right? So given the fact that we know we are facing some very serious budget challenges, I think it's more important for us to really understand which are the programs that give us the best bang for the buck, or for the resources we can invest on to you may potentially put more in. And of course, for those that tends to not work well, or has shown to be extremely resource intensive for very little results, I think those are the things that we need to highlight to try to do that. In order for us to come up with the priorities, I think is what we're trying to do here, right?
Yeah, and it's actually, this is helpful feedback, so maybe I can say back to you what I think I'm hearing from you both, which is, from your lens, categorizing within these 15 categories of services that we're delivering is perhaps less valuable. What you're looking for in terms of policy direction given by the committee to county administration that we will then include in our guidance and instructions to departments as they're preparing proposals for reductions for fiscal 27 is to really focus on the practices that are most evidence-based, yielding the outcomes we hope to the best extent we know that, to yield the recidivism reduction outcomes that are kind of the overarching goal of the system. And that may then play out as within one of these categories, whether it's employment, really saying we're going to preserve funding for, if there's 6 programs funded in that category, the 4 that we think have the strongest outcomes / evidence base. And to do that as we approach all the services that are under this bucket, rather than identifying 5 buckets that should be prioritized for preservation.
No, exactly. And I think I would also like to incorporate the input from the community of how they're backing why this works from the community. So that's why I think the lived experience is important, that it's evidence-based, what the community is saying, it really works, how it changed lives. And they have so many great stories that we could tell. And sometimes it's better to use stories to tell to the public. Oftentimes we do a lot of good work at this county, in this building. The problem is people don't know what we do. And they say, oh, what does the county do? Right. So I think it's important to also collect these stories, and then that would back these decisions we'll be making in the future, especially when we have to make cuts, right? That's going to be the hardest one, as we know. But at the same time, we have to explain why those have to be made in order to fund the other more effective programs. So I just want to highlight that.
Happy to add that,
Yeah.
and appreciate it. Definitely aligns with where I think we would hope.
So I know I'm running late, so I just want to mention the last bit of questions I have is we know that, of course, with data, there are always gaps. Sometimes some information is updated or missing outcomes. For example, for the cognitive behavior therapy or the client support fund categories, for example. So I just want to see, hopefully, that we could try to come up with some updates on this information first, before we make these final decisions on funding. And at this point, where in the timeline are the CEO and the state involved, given the September prioritization, October finalization we're talking about here? Is there something that we could clarify? I think that could be helpful. And basically is, I don't think today is the right day. I agree completely with the chair that to give you those priorities right this moment. But instead, we are going to ask, maybe bring this to a full board in the future for more thorough discussion.
Yeah, I can, actually, thank you. I had neglected to say at the outset when I was making the comments about administration's plan for bringing these series of items that our plan now, and welcome your feedback on this, is to have discussions like this one at the committee level, and then to do our best to summarize the feedback that we've gotten from the committee. So akin to where I just summarized back to you, I hope accurately, some of the feedback we were getting from you, to include that in a report that will go to the full board that really summarizes the committee's feedback in each of these categories of items that'll be brought to the committee level to confirm that the feedback we got from committee reflects the feedback of the full board. And then that input will then inform our guidance to our departments as we go into the fiscal 27 budget process.
I think that is spot on, and I very much appreciated the way you very accurately reflected back that we are not prioritizing a category for its own sake, but looking at all of those categories and seeing how impactful they are toward the goal of sustained reentry and lack of recidivism. So I will make a motion to receive the report with the direction that hopefully you can pull out of that in a concise way. Greta's nodding, so that should be good. And would look for a second.
Oh, definitely. Second, I just want to thank staff again for this important discussion of how we move forward under these constrained environment we're in. But at the same time, I think we are going toward a place where we are sitting back to look a bigger picture of what works, what doesn't work, so that we're going to hopefully make some smarter decisions with the limited resource we have. Thank you.
Let's vote, please.
Vice Chairperson Lee?
Aye.
And Chairperson Ellenberg?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you as well for the public speakers, for the organizations that sent in letters to us. The conversation, as I hope you all feel strongly, will continue, and there will be many opportunities to weigh in further. Item 5 is where we are now, which is to consider recommendations relating to post-conviction. Did we vote? Did I do that again?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Did we vote?
We did.
Cool. Then we're going to move on to item 5, which is to consider recommendations relating to post-conviction sentencing reform legislation. And I believe we're starting with Damon.
Yeah, Supervisor Ellenberg, I'll defer to the district attorney and the public defender team as to who is going to speak first. But as they're getting settled, I thought I'd just steal a minute and add a quick correction to the materials that we submitted in our ledge file. On page 16, it includes a table. There are 2 corrections I want to make, and we will actually submit updated, corrected documents to the clerk of the board, one of which is at the bottom of the table, the Public Defender Pilot Program. Grant lists PDO having funding for 4 attorney FTEs. That's actually 2 attorney FTEs. Again, I'll send that correction, as well as the termination date of the grant is not March 1st. 2025, it is December 2026. So I just thought I'd save some time making that correction now and then hand it off. I think we are going to begin with the public defender team. I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name's Deidre Edgar. I'm an attorney with the Public Defender's Office, and I'm the supervisor of our post-conviction unit. It's wonderful to see you all again. I was here about a year ago, and I gave you the first of a post-conviction report that comes from our office, but really encapsulates everything this county is heroically doing for post-conviction based on California law. To my left is a former client, Mr. Hung Ho, who will close us up on this very brief presentation. And to my right is our business manager, Ms. Hong, and she's going to assist me so I don't waste time with slides. And then to our far right is our prestigious colleague, Alexandra Gateberg, who's going to talk from the district attorney's point of view on this mutual work that we all do. I will keep it brief and leave time at the end if you need further information from me. The first slide, I would first like to say, I'm going to give you data on impact, measurement, and a follow-up as to what we discussed earlier. You're going to hear the real stories about the real work with real measurements that are reliable. So this, and there's more slides that I'm going to not talk about in your packet. This slide is a list of the 10 laws that California has passed since about AB 109's inception in 2011, because California over-incarcerated its population and the prisons were too full, and there's racial disparity in those sentences that have been deemed unfair by the laws that have been passed in California. Most recently, the Racial Justice Act and Penal Code Section 745. This is mandated work. This is not a luxury legal service. These are services that the community members of Santa Clara County, their families, their voters, their taxpayers are entitled to relief if they're eligible. So we have absorbed that work. I don't believe we've come to this board to ask for more money. We've gotten external grants to do that, and we set up an infrastructure that I will say is probably the premier efficient run post-conviction unit in the state, because we took external money and we invested it in an infrastructure that now works on its own in partnership with the district attorney, the Santa Clara County courts, and our reentry partners. It will survive all of us, even if I'm no longer going to come and address you. This infrastructure is now built, and it's highly efficient. It was built on grants, and those grants are going to dry up very soon, but I'll get to that later. This slide shows you the impact. We have, since about middle of 2021 to the spring of 2025, we have gotten new reduced or new sentences for 135 men. Most of them are men of color. Most of them were serving essentially life sentences. Most of them, on average, were 62 years when they came out. Last year, you may recall that you heard from Mr. Jerome Fosselman, who is sitting behind me, with many other of these 135 men. The majority of, I would say almost half of these men were deemed court-ordered immediately released. That means when we brought the petition to the DA or to the court immediately released these people from essentially life sentences, acknowledging that continued incarceration was unjust. We took these grants that we got to build these infrastructures, and we broke off a part to our ADO partners and our IDO partners, because as a county, we did this work together. No indigenous clients went without representation, and they still are all receiving services. This population and this chart shows you a breakdown of some of the law reforms that we used, including many were agreed upon with our district attorney's office, because we brought them quality work of quality grants of justice, and our court and our DA partners agreed. That means we didn't spend the millions of dollars we got in grants in litigation, costly, long, lengthy litigation with expensive expert bills to this county. We actually did all of this work in cooperation and conjunction with a case management system with our Superior Court. We have a presiding judge who is extremely grateful for our efficiency in our organization, because our court no longer has to deal with all of the chaotic work that comes from unprepared filings and requests from indigent defendants. So we're very proud of this work. We have partners in our community that are helping us get this done. So we'll go on to the next slide, which shows some accountability stats. When we want to measure how has this work been coming, is it successful, I can sit here and tell you today that none of these people have gone back to prison. I don't know how many counties can sit here and give you that data, but I'm giving it to you today. It's possible some may have, but I'm not aware of them. Many of them, again, are sitting behind me. Many of the men that were ordered released, that the system essentially discarded for life, is sitting behind me today, and they are living a very positive life. You're going to meet some of them. You'll hear from Mr. Ho at the end. Another thing that we can do in terms of measurement and success is of these 135, which is a conservative estimate, and remember, that's just public defender numbers. That's not ADO, that's not IDO, our wonderful partners that are doing this work for our community. We've saved over 1,600 years of incarceration. On a very modest calculus, that's $32 million. That is the lowest estimate that the California Legislative Analyst Office used. It is likely much more than that. And if you think about this population, the prison and the state would have paid for elderly care for many of these people that are not included in these estimates. Talk about the efficiency Santa Clara County has received. Not only do we take in the public defender every single request that we get from a prison population averaging 3,000 at any given time, we take these requests in from family, from nonprofits, from clients, from other attorneys, from district attorneys, from judges. We process them, we work them up, we hand them off to ADO or IDO if there's a conflict. We respond to every single one. We track every single one. We've put them all into a central database that we didn't have when I last spoke with you last year. And we've done all this without any extra money. We've done all this on our existing funds and our external grants. That efficiency and that infrastructure remains to this day.
Okay.
So these grants are going to expire, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what they are. We have some positions. The DA's office has some grants and positions, and those may go away. But what I want to implore at this point is that we have now invested and built as a county incredible services that we must do. If we no longer do them, who's going to do them? How will they be done? And how much will it cost to replicate some type of intake service? Next slide. This is just a slide on the grants, and that will give you the breakdown of the grants that are expiring. Next slide. And these are our county partners. And this is a big deal. This is a nod to our reentry. We just heard from AB 109. This is a nod to all the gentlemen sitting behind me and our other advocates in the community. When we bring these men home to our community, and we have a short list of women, that is our goal this year, in partnership with the DA's office, is to get some women home. These are the partners that help us house them, that help serve them work, that give them community, that give them mental health care, that give them long-term services, that give them a ride home, that give them mentorship. So what is the special sauce? Frankly, it's humanity and kindness. It doesn't cost a lot to get to know your clients. It doesn't cost a lot to get to know what they need individually. And we have partners in the community that are providing those services, but it's linking them appropriately and respectfully. And every door is a yes. Every door is a how do we find it and where do we get it? We don't say, oh, it's 5, we're closed, or you don't qualify, or we don't have bicycles at the public defender's office. We find a nonprofit and we go get a bicycle, because then they can ride to work, and then they can be employed, and then there's not a relapse, and there's not homelessness. So we don't say no, we just say, how do we find it, where do we find it, and at times we raise some money and give somebody some money that we've all raised and skip lunch, and we move on. And then these gentlemen, these experts in the field of reentry, are out there helping people do the same thing. And they're not even charging the county for their time to give this mentorship. Next slide. You may remember Mr. Fosselman. He is in the audience today. He spoke with you last year. He is now successfully off parole. The answer is intentional and functional reentry. These people that have an intentional, functional plan, public safety is then ensured, recidivism is then ended, and we're using resources in the community to help people live the positive life that every human being has the potential to live. So Mr. Fosselman is here to give us support. Mr. Fosselman actually mentored and referred Mr. Ho to his current employment. So let me show you how that linkage works. Mr. Ho was an agreed-upon release with the district attorney's office in April of last year. Mr. Ho is now 59 years old and sitting to my left. He was born in South Vietnam in 1966 during the Vietnam War. When he was growing up, his family lived and hid in bunkers and experienced incredible trauma. His dad was captured by the North Vietnamese and sentenced to a work camp. Eventually, the family immigrated to Malaysia as refugees when Mr. Ho was about 13. In 1978, the family then immigrated to the United States, and they set foot here in San Jose. Mr. Ho then started middle school here in San Jose in 1978. He had never been in school before that day. As a refugee trying to assimilate after all of that trauma, he had a difficult time. He developed substance abuse issues, and he did engage in criminal activities that eventually sentenced him to life essentially in prison. Mr. Ho has done an incredible job of his own rehabilitation. Unfortunately, both of his parents have now passed away. His mother passed away when he was 19 and before his life sentence, but that was compounding trauma. He has 3 sisters, and he's the only male son of this family. Mr. Ho now works as a certified technician in a chemical company 6 days a week, sometimes 7. He enjoys and appreciates the overtime pay. He has mentored other people, and he has taught them how to work in this very hazardous but essential business in our community. Mr. Ho has successfully completed parole with no violations. Mr. Ho got this job referral from Mr. Fosselman, who you heard from last year. Neither of them have charged our county for reentry or mentorship services. Mr. Ho has lunch every morning now with his sister at 11 a.m. on his way to work because he works the night shift. He has his own studio apartment. He's purchased his own car. He has a savings account, and he rescued a dog, and that dog is Lucky, and that dog is in this photo. Had Mr. Ho not received the services of this county, which I will say, and I meet regularly with other counties, Santa Clara County is doing the premier post-conviction work by far. We are the only county, and I ask you to call up your colleagues, ask them the numbers, ask them for the stories, ask them how many people came out on life and didn't go back to prison. You won't probably get that answer, but we're continuing to measure because we know we're fighting for our existence. We know that if this board or this county doesn't allow us to do this work, these people will not receive their mandated relief for racial disparities, inappropriate long-term sentences, and frankly, just an acknowledgement that our community needs them back, and they can do wonderful things. I will actually escort Mr. Ho up to the podium. Last time, we had our clients speak at public hearing, and the feedback was let them speak on their own. So he's my closer, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll move to the district attorney's presentation. Stand right at the podium, please.
Hi.
You don't, excuse
Hi,
me,
my
you
name
don't
is,
need the microphone.
My name
Thank
is
you.
Hung Ho. That I just want to thank you to have me here. I just want to speak a little bit about the post-conviction that helped me to got me a release date, and I got out from 16 months ago. I got out from prison. They guide me all the way to now, helping me, house me, place me where I stay at, and give me food and stuff. And she introduced me to Miss Beth. Miss Beth right there. And my deportation, I've been taking my green card away when I got convicted 35 years ago. They took my green card away. And when I got out, Miss Ann Jolly introduced me to Miss Beth. And Miss Beth took me to San Francisco immigration to check in that I thought I'm going to have detained. And, but they didn't. They have released me, and Miss Beth found a petition to get me a work permit. And they gave me a work permit, and then she filed a petition to get my green card back. Finally, that they granted, the church granted. And finally, 3 weeks ago, I have my green card sent it to me. And I appreciate it really much about post-conviction. Helped me all the way to now. And everyone that I know that live in a transitional housing with me, and all lifers, that far as I know, Mr. Campbell, Mr. Fosterman, there's a lot of guys that I know with lifers. We off parole, we're doing good. I got a stable job, stable house, cars. I purchased myself a car and stuff. So I really thank you for post-conviction. Miss Angeli, Miss Beth, Miss Anna, Magali, Miss Brittany, Jory. I really appreciate you guys. Without you guys, I don't have this day. Thank you so much.
I would say Mr. Ho benefited from the Santa Clara County Public Defender's immigration attorneys, who not only retrieved his residency card after 35 years, we're now helping set him up for citizenship in the next 2.
Yes.
So we're very honored to be here, and thank you for listening.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Ho, and to all of the post-conviction success stories here, and to the Public Defender's Office. And I am eager to hear about the partnership on the district attorney's side. Your microphone's not on yet.
Thank you. Give me one moment while I set this up. I believe I am sharing my screen at this point. Thank you. So the district attorney's office, like our justice partners, are experiencing a sharp increase in workload based on multiple recent unfunded state sentencing reforms. Now, our office is tasked with the important public safety duty of reviewing and, in appropriate cases, opposing these post-conviction matters. Now, of course, this work is in addition to the current active caseload, which has also increased in both number and scope in recent years. Many of these post-conviction matters necessitate tasks by both deputy district attorneys and staff members, and in many cases are data-heavy, laborious, and costly. Now, these are some of the examples of the post-conviction relief resentencing reforms that were alluded to by our colleagues. In our review, what we're tasked with doing is basically an independent review. So as wonderful as some of the packets are that come in specifically from the Public Defender's Office, ADO and IDO, we also get petitions from pro per or self-represented litigants and private attorneys. In all of these matters, we have a duty to thoroughly review the underlying crime, the procedural history of the case, and make an independent determination of eligibility and suitability, which necessarily ties into public safety. We also have to comply with Marcy's Law requirements. In some older cases, we have to go back with our investigators and track down victims. Some of these post-conviction cases go back to the 70s and 80s. In some of these older cases, in addition, we have to reconstruct the files in some cases. We have to convert antiquated technologies such as floppy disks, where discovery was housed on or stored on before, find systems to convert that data so that we can provide it in discovery, and sometimes also obtain transcripts from the state archives, which is very costly. That is for when we're just reviewing a case. We may actually stipulate to a resentencing in those cases. We still have to do that legwork, which can take many, many, many hours. If we're going to oppose one of these petitions, additional work is needed. Multiple court appearances, which of course take time, drafting and filing legal briefs, complying with additional discovery requests, and sometimes evidentiary hearings where we have to call live witnesses. In the case of RJA or Racial Justice Act claims or the felony murder reform petitions, each individual case can actually take hundreds of hours of work. So again, we have to review and respond to petitions from a number of different sources. A very conservative estimate over the last 2 years, we have reviewed 732 petitions. Now again, each petition requires an immense amount of time, energy, and resource in order to review and adequately respond to. This figure does not include the prosecution-initiated resentencing. So it does not include those cases where the Public Defender's Office has brought cases to our attention saying, would you consider this for a prosecution-initiated recall? And then my last slide, and this is included in your packet, this is an example of not only do we have a number of petitions coming in, they're on the rise. So this is an example of Penal Code Section 1473.7. This is our post-conviction immigration relief. And over the last few years, we've seen a significant increase. We've seen an increase of about 85% since 2022. Most important, we're seeing a huge increase in rush petitions, and these are for persons that are currently in ICE detention or pending deportation. So these are very important that we get to these in a timely manner, and unfortunately, they move other people who have been pending relief down the list because we have to take these on a priority basis. So in all, we've seen a very sharp increase in the work that our DAs are doing. It's very important work, and I second that of Ms. Eggers, but it is creating a tremendous impact on our office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the work of both departments, and truly I am impressed by and made hopeful by the partnership and the collaboration. I'd like to go to the public first and then come back to the committee members.
We have 5 requests to speak in chambers and 0 in Zoom.
All right, 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay, when I call your name, if you could please approach the podium. Madeline Narrowly, Melissa Valdez, Cynthia Delacourt Longs, and Raj Jayadev. You can speak in any order.
Good morning, Board. My name is Madeline Martinez, and this summer I was an intern for Silicon Valley Debug. Throughout our work this summer, I have continuously seen resources like public defenders be crucial to our community. And today I am urging you to keep funding for public defenders and post-conviction cases. This work is not optional. It's the last safeguard against wrongful convictions and unfair sentences. Without adequate resources, these individuals are left without a meaningful opportunity to be heard, especially those who are low income, system impacted, and without the means to hire private counsel. Please keep these funds in our system. Please keep these funds so our system remains fair for everyone, not just those who can afford it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Narrowly with Silicon Valley Debug, and I want to speak in support of the Public Defender's Office for them to be able to continue doing post-conviction work. In partnership, we have worked with families through this process, and it is important for public defenders to have the time to be able to work on cases rather than adding to their already heavy caseload if not given the opportunity. We continue to support many families who have loved ones coming back on resentencing cases, Racial Justice Act cases, and if funds were to be cut, it would be heavily impacted. It would heavily impact the process for the families, the courts, and the Public Defender's Office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Delacourt Longs. I am here to speak to try to make sure that you are convinced to continue these post-convictions. It is important to allow the budget item so many people who have been exposed to the racism and this justice system get the treatment that they need. They are overcharged for crimes, and these funds would assist to right a lot of the wrongs that have been done. I have a son who is inside, and he has been overcharged. I attend weekly meetings, and I hear the cases. A lot needs to be done, and things are being done, so we're thankful for that. I have 2 relatives who have come home. Thank you for this program. More attorneys are needed to do this work. These attorneys do a great job. Thank you very much. Please continue to allow this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Melissa Valdez. I am an organizer with Silicon Valley Debug, and I'm here to say to please ensure that there is adequate funding to the post-conviction team at the Public Defender's Office. There's so many people inside who we do want to bring home, so many fathers, grandfathers who are needed back into our community to give guidance to the youth. So many lifers who we have successfully brought home have been doing exceptionally well, and there's so many others who we need to bring home as well. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Raj Jad with Silicon Valley Debug. I first wanted to thank Mr. Ho for his testimony. There's not many times I've been overwhelmed with the spirit of inspiration in this building, but I was today, so thank you. And the team that brought him home along with your family. As Cynthia said, every week we have a meeting of families whose loved ones are incarcerated, and they come together to try to figure out how they could work together to try to assist an attorney to bring them home. More recently, in the past couple of years, we've had a lot more families come seeking post-conviction relief. Their loved one inside has sent them a letter, said, we've heard about these new laws that says that some of the laws I was convicted on aren't lawful anymore. Mm-hmm. Some of the laws that I'm doing time for have been deemed overly punitive, and I have a second chance. Or that the prosecution was racist, and now I could bring that forward to try to come home. And while there's hope there, the key to that is whether that person is going to have an attorney that can advocate for them. Fortunately, as Public Defender Deidre mentioned, in Santa Clara County, we have been the model across the state in doing just that. And we have loved ones that are home because of that infrastructure that this county has supported. These grant cuts that are mentioned in the slides could not come at a worse time. We have the most opportunity for freedom, and therefore we also have the most need for the resources to effectuate those stories of freedom. As fate would have it, we had a celebration yesterday, our annual Time Saved Party, where we bring people together who are home because of these resentencing laws and the advocacy of their defense teams. We had over 483 years of time saved from incarceration. We cannot think of a more compelling need to move budgetary priorities than to exercising and protecting the rights of those who are incarcerated to come home and be reunited. Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Ho, in particular, for sharing your story today, and to the public speakers and to everyone who works on these critical cases. I absolutely recognize the significant burden that an unfunded mandate places on all of you, especially at a time, as you have heard and will continue to hear, that our budget is deeply constrained. Again, the state has required us to take on significant work, and without corresponding resources, we're really forced into an extraordinarily challenging position to think hard about capacity while exploring creative ways to support these obligations. I appreciated that the reports highlighted a few grant opportunities that have been secured for the work. I'm interested to know, and I don't know which way to look, so for any of you, beyond grants, which unfortunately are few and far between, what other sources of funding or staffing support are you considering or thinking about?
Thank you for that question, Supervisor Ellenberg. And I would start with all options are on the table from our perspective. I'm sure you have heard us discuss in general while we've wrestled with budget challenges over the last 2 years of looking at partnerships either with law schools in terms of fellowships that can potentially help us. Our work and our pro bono partnerships with community or with community law firms have also been highlighted recently in the grand jury, a recent grand jury report. And in particular, I think one of the novel approaches we've actually discussed directly with our intergovernmental relations team about a discussion about incentivizing the work we do. You'll notice one of the slides that Deidre presented on talked about $32 million in savings that we have delivered to the state. And you know, our earlier presentation on AB 109 funding, part of the AB 109 funding is calculated on success rates in this county. And frankly, we should be advocating with the state to incentivize every county, and in particular as well, our county, to do this work and to deliver the type of success we have. So we have been speaking with David Campos's team in our recent meetings and looking at an opportunity of potentially, hopefully extracting some funds back from the state for all the money we're saving.
I think that is fascinating, and it's true. We know how expensive it is to keep people incarcerated, and if we are saving the state significant funds, having even a percentage of those funds as incentive bonuses, I think, is a really creative and exciting idea.
It makes fiscal sense, and in many ways, it's easy to sell. And one comment I just want to in general make is assure the community and the Board of Supervisors, regardless of what takes place with the funding and these grants, we are committed to doing this work. We are going to do it, not only because it's mandated, but because it's morally the right thing we need to do. And so we will figure out a way to do it. It may be impacted, and you have seen us talk about a sense of urgency around the work, and that's in particular where I think the funding becomes most important. But let me hand it back.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. You noted that you've got some partnerships with private law firms that do pro bono work. I would draw your attention to the fact that many law firms also have foundations and maybe want to sponsor a program or support in other ways as well. I may or may not get in trouble for saying that. Let me turn to Greta for this. As the county budget, of course, continues to tighten, are we providing or is there support available to departments to enable them to pursue external funding opportunities? Is that something we do
I can say
centrally?
a couple things on that. One is I'll just say a little bit more about what Damon just mentioned, which is I'm really glad that we're collecting some of the data on how much cost savings may have been yielded for the state. We call that the wrong pockets problem. Sometimes we do wonderful work at the county level, and the savings ends up in the wrong pocket, and that happens in a lot of areas where we're doing really wonderful work and where we're not getting adequate cost coverage from the state, especially where, as is true in many arenas, we're more than earning our keep in terms of the savings we're yielding for the state. So pursuing some of those, and I can't delineate this, maybe the public defender can, but I know that we're sort of in the early phases of implementation of some of the laws that I believe were mentioned in terms of some other counties haven't had these take effect. So I think there's also a lot of opportunities for us to provide feedback to the state on here's how this is playing out on the ground. And as this rolls forward, you're going to need to provide appropriate funding to support both the increased workload some of these wonderful laws have created for public defenders who opt in to providing this kind of representation, as well as for district attorneys' offices that then need to partner with criminal defense counsel on these areas. In addition to that, we did fund in the last budget, the board approved the addition of a centralized resource to support departments in seeking additional grant funding. We're particularly interested in having that extra staffing focus on a lot of areas of criminal justice work where we think we really need additional support, especially to be able to preserve the non-mandated wonderful work that's happening in a number of county departments where we start getting into budgetary where we're going to have to cut to the bone just down to mandated services. But we have some of our most incredible work happening in non-mandated programs. So I'm hopeful that that investment will yield some really significant benefits. But of course, you know, all counties around the state are facing really lean times. And I think we also just have to be clear-eyed about the fact that we sometimes, although we put together truly excellent competitive applications, I think are sometimes thought of as less in need of that support than certain other counties that have less resources than we're lucky to have as a community. So, we will pursue every single one of those, and we also, I think, need to just be realistic about what some of those efforts will yield.
Thank you so much. Supervisor Lee.
Yes, thank you so much for the stories that was told. Thank you very much, Long, for being here, and many of you who have been, gone through the systems. Over-incarceration has been going on for a long time, and this a lot of times is a result of overly aggressive, not just a prosecution, but just harsh sentencing guidelines for many decades ago for various crimes that really should not have been charged. If we recall the 3 strikes you're out, that was one of those overly charged items that people could get charged a 3rd time and have to be in jail for life. It makes no freaking sense. And even for the days when I was back in law school, up here, now they call it UC Law San Francisco in San Francisco, I couldn't tell you how many decades ago that was. I don't want to admit my age, but I certainly was very shocked even back then, the definition of felony murder and how that one charge is absolutely the most used tool for giving so many individuals being in the wrong place and wrong time to be charged like they were murderers. And of course, that results in decades of incarcerations. Many of those are very young individuals. Just to name one of those examples I can remember. So, I mean, it really is costly, it's extremely costly to be housed in our jails or prisons, but really is more costly not just to the lives of those who were jailed there, but for the families, their children and the loved ones and the parents that could not share the life with them for one of these mistakes of being in the wrong place. And the story that we just heard from Tong regarding the intentional functional reentry is absolutely the type of work that I want Javier to please highlight these stories to a community and not thinking that sending folks to El Salvador without due process and just lock them up is the way to approach public safety, which is what I think is the mantra we're hearing so often. And I absolutely want to, on a happier note, recognize our public defender's office and the district attorneys as well, and those immigration attorneys who are doing these post-conviction works, because this is not just for justice, it's not just morally right, you are actually saving lives, I mean, we always gave credit to our firefighters saving lives. We give credit to our nurses and doctors. But you are no less important in our system to make sure so many lives are being helped and saved this way. So I just want to say thank you very much from the bottom of my heart, and please keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any final comments, Damon?
May I make just one last comment? I just want to kind of express my sincere gratitude to really all of the partners that have made this possible, and it includes certainly the district attorney's office and the partnership that we've been able to have to really do this efficiently and effectively, but it also includes the Superior Court and their leadership and helping us manage this in efficient ways. It includes our public defense partners, our IDO, our ADO leadership, their attorneys, our friends at the Reentry Center, and certainly our community partners, agents or organizations like Silicon Valley Debug. And then lastly, I want to take just a moment to acknowledge the men, primarily or almost exclusively at this point, the men who have returned home and the success that they have delivered to us, because they allow us to carry this message that this is money well invested, returning them to our community. So I want to thank you all for what you've done.
Thank you, Damon. I'm happy to move for, was your light on?
Yes.
Go ahead, Sylvia.
Just one final comment. I think just to bring this loop, I appreciate Damon's comments and agree with all of that. One loop in terms of tying up this conversation too is that, we talked about value and value added and data and outcomes. And we've, I think the Public Defender's Office, you've done a really great job in pointing out those outcomes and the value. But I think especially now, this moment in time, when we're wanting to maintain sort of the value of our institutions and provide the public with a sense of trust that our justice system is functioning, the legislative information that we have and the changes in the law are a vehicle and an avenue to do that. But if we, as a system, don't have the personnel, the manpower, the willingness, the commitment, the mission, the dedication to make meaningful impact and to respond to that demand, then we fail as a system. And that is an intangible value added that is hard to quantify. And as Greta mentioned earlier, when we talk about outcomes and data, that those are immeasurable. And we can't lose sight of that. And I think that is what we need to sort of continue to push on. And our county, as we've mentioned, is a leader in this. And I think it's the leadership and the partnerships that we can leverage that doesn't cost us any additional amount, including the partnership that we've leveraged with the district attorney's office in this effort, because that's what justice is about. We're not going to always agree, but that process is valuable. The number of people released is not enough to tell us the value we've added. It's the number of people whose questions and inquiries we've answered, who have been left at peace, that their issue has been resolved, and that at least that their voice has been heard and that their call has been answered. That is the immeasurable impact, because that is thousands and thousands of people that we serve every single day, all of us, whether they be victims or whether they be clients or they will be family members of those that are incarcerated. So I think that is an important message that we need to leave with today.
Thank you. I see lots of lights on. I'm happy to hear the comments. I also just want to note that we are at 11:58, and I will go first to Kavita, or Casey. I can't tell which light. It's Kavita's light.
It's me, and I'm actually too small to reach this mic, so I'm going to have to lean way forward in order to speak. So Greta and I were just whispering about something that we thought would be useful to update everyone on, which is there is an old statewide process that was enacted by a bill called Senate Bill 90. We call it the SB 90 process. And what it allows for is where the legislature passes a law that is an unfunded mandate. It requires local government to do something, and it provides no money to do that. There's a challenge process where cities or counties can file a claim in order to have that mandate hopefully be funded by the state, but it requires litigation. That law largely was laying dormant for many years, with very few counties filing these test claims because they're extremely labor intensive, and the commission takes sometimes 10 years to adjudicate claims. Thanks to actually the leadership of some very public finance focused attorneys in our office, with the partnership of the Controller's Office and Greta and the County Executive, we have really kicked into high gear, becoming a statewide leader on filing SB 90 claims. The reason I raise all of this is there's a pending SB 90 proceeding relating to the Racial Justice Act and all of the mandates that it imposes on local government to do precisely the work that we're talking about. There's a draft decision that came out from the commission that decides those matters, which won't be finally adopted, if they decide to adopt it, until September, but which contains good news about potential state funding for some of this work. So we'll keep you all posted on that, and post-September I could try to give an update here.
Please do. Thank you. And Greta, you have something to add
Yeah, I was
to
going to
that?
say, just wanted to make sure Kavita could give that update and say this is another effort in that, and actually quite a fruitful one. It takes forever. It's really labor intensive, but it can yield huge results. About, now 13 years ago, very early in my tenure in the County Council's office, I first cut my teeth on trying to use this process to preserve behavioral health funding for services for high-risk youth. And we were able to win a case that had really significant impact to counties statewide in preserving these funding sources. So really just wanted to give kudos to the County Council's office, also the Public Defender's Office and District Attorney's Office, who've partnered with them on helping marshal a lot of information to support Los Angeles County's challenge to the unfunded nature of the Racial Justice Act. So fingers crossed that yields, that's one of many efforts that we'll undertake to try and get these sorts of bodies of work more appropriately funded.
Thank you. Really fascinating and encouraging. Do you have a
I have a
comment?
motion to make to
Beautiful.
move to receive a report for both the Office of the District Attorney and Public Defender.
And direction to bring an update
Yes.
in September
That's
on
correct.
that information. Thank you.
Correct.
Yes, let's vote.
Vice Chairperson Lee
Aye.
and Chairperson Allenberg?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 9 is PSJC Department and Court announcements. If anyone has an announcement, please turn your light on. Looking. I see no lights, so I will move to item 14, which is to adjourn this meeting. The next regular meeting of the Public Safety and Justice Committee is scheduled for Friday, September 12th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Have a wonderful day, everyone.